March 1941. The North Atlantic had become a killing ground, cold, silent, and perfect for the hunters Germany had unleashed. Every night, another handful of merchant ships disappeared beneath the waves. No survivors. No warning. Just the echo of one more lifeline cut. Britain was starving, and Admiral Karl Dönitz knew it. On average, 5 ships a day were being torpedoed, so many that British shipyards couldn't even come close to replacing them. The math was terrifyingly simple. Britain needed 43 million tons of food, fuel, and raw materials every year. The U-boats were cutting that lifeline faster than Britain could rebuild it. In the first 3 months of 1941, German submarines sank more than 350,000 tons of Allied shipping. April would be even worse. Over 500,000 tons gone. Winston Churchill later said that the U-boat threat was the only thing during the entire war that truly frightened him. But the real nightmare was the wolf pack. Dönitz had perfected a hunting system that used every weakness in the convoy system. Instead of a single submarine picking off a lone ship, packs of 8 to 12 U-boats coordinated their attacks. One U-boat shadowed the convoy from a distance, radioing constant updates. Then, after sunset, the pack closed in from several directions. The escorts, often just 2 or 3 destroyers, never stood a chance. A destroyer would race toward one explosion only to hear another detonate miles behind it. By dawn, the convoy's neat formation had holes where ships used to be. Meanwhile, the U-boats slipped away to recharge, ready to strike again the next night. British shipyards couldn't keep up. Even working around the clock, Britain and Canada launched only 120 merchant ships per quarter, while the U-boats were sinking that many every 6 weeks. And every ship lost meant losing trained crews, men who knew how to survive the Atlantic storms, experience that couldn't be replaced by fresh recruits. Losses climbed. January, 21 ships. February, 39 ships. March, 41 ships. April, 43 ships. The numbers told the story. Disaster. And it wasn't just tonnage. Some ships carried fuel for bombers. Others carried food for civilians already living on almost nothing. 1 egg a week, a few ounces of butter or bacon. When U-124 torpedoed the refrigerated cargo ship Beaver Ford, thousands of British families would feel it on their plates. Dönitz kept receiving new submarines faster than the Royal Navy could sink them. By early 1941, he commanded around 60 operational boats, with 30 more in training. Britain desperately needed an escort ship that didn't exist, cheap, fast to build, and numerous enough to guard every convoy. Destroyers were too few, too expensive, and took nearly 2 years to build. Something else was needed. The answer came from an unexpected place. Commercial whaling ships. In 1939, naval architect William Reed studied the small, tough whale catchers used near Iceland. They were fast enough, simple enough for any civilian yard to build, and used hydrophones to track whales, ironically, not so different from hunting a submarine. His design became the blueprint for the Flower-class Corvette, approved just 2 months before the war began. The specifications were humble. 950 tons displacement. 62 meters long. Single triple expansion steam engine. Top speed, 16 knots. Simple riveted construction. Range long enough for Atlantic crossings. Weapons were basic. 1 4-inch gun up front, a small anti-aircraft mount, and depth charges, the real reason the ship existed. But the Corvette's true miracle was speed of construction. Destroyers needed 18 to 24 months. Corvettes could be built in 5 to 6 months by civilian shipyards that had never produced a warship before. They were cramped, soaked by Atlantic waves, and rolled so violently sailors joked you could get seasick just looking at one. But none of that mattered. For the first time, Britain had something it had never had before: escort ships that could be built fast enough, and in enough numbers to fight back. By the end of 1939, 56 corvettes were ordered. By war's end, more than 260 Flower-class corvettes would serve across the Allied navies. And they arrived just in time. Because in early 1941, with only 180 destroyers stretched across multiple oceans and missions, the Royal Navy simply could not save every convoy. The U-boats were winning. Britain was losing. And the Atlantic, cold, dark, and unforgiving, was tightening its grip. The stage was set for a desperate turning point. And the battle for survival was only beginning. Britain's survival now rested on the little ships. Corvettes, cheap, fast to build, and endlessly tough, were the only vessels that could be produced in numbers large enough to fight the U-boat assault. Each Flower-class Corvette cost just £65,000 and could be ready for action in 6 months. A single destroyer cost as much as 21 Corvettes. Britain simply couldn't afford to lose them. Destroyers were meant for fleet battles, screening battleships, hunting surface raiders, racing at 36 knots. Using them for slow convoy work was like forcing a racehorse to pull a plow. They could do it, but everything about it was wasteful. Fuel was the biggest problem. The Tribal-class destroyer HMS Cossack burned around 450 tons of fuel oil per week while crawling at convoy speed, only 8 to 10 knots. That meant refueling every 8 to 10 days, forcing destroyers to peel away mid-ocean or requiring vulnerable tankers to accompany the convoy. Corvette fuel use was a fraction of that, only 110 tons a week, allowing them to guard a convoy across the Atlantic and back without refueling. Destroyers were fast, yes, and could sprint toward a U-boat attack. But sinking a submarine wasn't about speed. It required slow, steady sweeps with sonar, long hunts, and precise depth charge patterns. For that job, a Corvette's modest 16-knot top speed was more than enough. Destroyer numbers collapsed early in the war. During the Norwegian campaign and the evacuation from Dunkirk, Britain lost 23 destroyers and had 37 more damaged between April and June 1940. Shipyards couldn't replace them. By autumn, the Admiralty had to choose: keep destroyers for fleet action, or scatter them across the Atlantic where U-boats were guaranteed to kill them. Churchill chose to preserve them. Convoys would have to rely on corvettes, armed trawlers, and a handful of worn-out Great War destroyers. Then came the winter sea itself, an enemy as deadly as the U-boats. Between November and March, storms forming off Newfoundland charged east across the open ocean. Waves rose high enough to swallow a corvette's bow. Winds above 64 knots, hurricane force, were common. On February 15, 1941, Convoy HX 106 sailed straight into a storm system later compared to a Category 3 hurricane. Winds hit 75 knots. Waves climbed 18 to 20 meters. The convoy scattered. 2 merchant ships were lost. 3 destroyers were so battered by the storm they diverted to Iceland with structural damage and seawater in their fuel lines. But the 4 corvettes stayed. For 48 straight hours, they rolled, slammed, and clawed their way through the storm and held their positions. Destroyers, long and sleek, suffered badly in such seas. Their 100-meter hulls stretched across multiple wave crests, twisting under enormous pressure. Cracked plates, buckled frames, and loosened rivets were common. The destroyer HMS Matabele needed 3 weeks in dock after a January 1942 storm. Corvettes, only 62 meters long, usually sat inside one wave. This made them pitch and roll almost unbelievably, up to 40 to 50 degrees in heavy seas, but the short hull survived the punishment. Lieutenant Commander James Rowland of HMS Bluebell recorded rolls of more than 48 degrees in March 1942. At that angle, the deck was nearly vertical. Anything unsecured flew across the ship. Cooking was impossible. Water flooded the galley. Men ate cold tins, if they could eat at all. Even seasoned sailors were violently seasick. Sleep vanished. After 72 hours, hallucinations and confusion set in. Fingers froze. Oilskins soaked through. Temperatures with wind chill fell to minus 20 degrees Celsius. Frostbite hit almost half the crew on winter runs. But still, the corvettes stayed beside the convoy, their sonar operating when destroyers couldn't keep contact. That sonar, ASTIC, was their most important weapon. It worked by sending out ultrasonic pulses, listening for echoes bouncing back from a submarine hull. In perfect conditions, it reached about 2,500 meters, though weather and ocean layers could shorten that range. Skilled operators could tell the difference between a submarine, a whale, a wreck, or even a dense school of fish. And sometimes, even in the worst seas, the corvettes proved why they mattered. On March 9, 1941, in violent storms that forced 2 destroyers to retreat, HMS Camellia detected a U-boat. Her depth charge attack forced U-70 to surface, where Camelia's 4-inch gun finished the kill, despite 15-meter swells that made aiming nearly impossible. Exhausted, freezing, and half-starved, the men of the corvettes held the line. Their ships were tiny, slow, and endlessly uncomfortable. But they were enough. And for now, that was all Britain had. And still the corvettes stayed on station, frozen, exhausted, and half awake. Their real strength was not comfort or size, it was training and discipline, both of which took 6 months at minimum to build. Depth charges remained their main killing weapon in the early war. The standard Type D charge carried 130 kilograms of amytal inside a steel cylinder, detonated by a hydrostatic pistol set between 15 and 90 meters. At close ranges the results were catastrophic. A submarine's pressure hull could rupture within 6 to 9 meters, suffer severe damage within 15 meters, and experience smashed pipes, electrical failures, and jammed controls even at 30 meters. Early corvettes usually carried around 40 charges, but by late 1942 most had 70 or more, using stern rails and side throwers to create full patterns. Yet early attack tactics were crude and wasteful. A corvette would simply race over the last known U-boat location and drop charges every 50 meters. It rarely worked. U-boats could slip below 120 meters, well deeper than the Type D setting, and ASTIC always failed directly beneath the attacking ship, creating a 30 to 45 second blind gap the submarine used to escape. The solution was the creeping attack, developed in 1941 and perfected through 1942. It required 2 escorts working as one team. The directing corvette stayed 1,200 to 1,500 meters astern of the contact, keeping continuous ASTIC readings and relaying exact ranges, depths, and headings. Target bearing 045, range 800, depth 30. The attacking ship crept forward slowly at 6 to 8 knots, minimizing noise. When ordered, she dropped a carefully spaced pattern, usually 10 charges, designed to box the submarine in. This new method raised success rates from around 8% to nearly 30%. Then came Hedgehog in 1942, a revolution. Instead of rolling depth charges behind, Hedgehog fired 24 contact-fused bombs forward, each with 16 kilograms of Torpex. They exploded only on direct impact, allowing the corvette to keep ASTIC contact the whole time. If nothing exploded, it was a miss. If explosions followed, the kill was almost certain. HMS Westcott scored the first Hedgehog kill in January 1943, 3 direct hits on U-138. Corvettes increasingly proved their worth. HMS Gladiolus scored her first kill on October 17, 1941 while escorting Convoy SC-48. After tracking U-553 for hours, she coordinated a creeping attack with HMS Mimosa. A 10-charge pattern set to multiple depths detonated close enough to jam the U-boat's controls. U-553 burst to the surface, and Gladiolus's gun crew sank her within minutes. 41 German sailors died, 4 survived. The pattern repeated across the Atlantic. HMS Narcissus destroyed U-24 on March 2, 1943 after a 6-hour hunt. The submarine tried every evasion trick, rapid dives, sharp turns, long silent periods, but the ASTIC operator never lost contact. 14 charges over 2 passes crushed the U-boat at 87 meters. In May 1943, HMS Sunflower showed just how relentless corvettes could be. Escorting Convoy ONS-5, she crippled U-638 in her first attack, then pursued for 7 hours through shifting thermal layers. A Hedgehog spread finally hit the forward hull and sank the boat instantly. 11 hours later, Sunflower destroyed U-531 with another Hedgehog volley. 2 submarines gone, only 3 merchantmen lost. Without Sunflower, the Convoy might have been devastated. These successes were not luck, they were the result of constant learning. Each engagement generated reports, diagrams, and lessons that spread across the fleet. By January 1944, when HMS Vervain sank U-641, the creeping attack had become so refined that the entire engagement lasted only 22 minutes. Destroyers killed many U-boats too, but they operated mostly near home waters or in specialized hunter-killer groups with strong support. Corvettes fought where the real grind happened, in the endless mid-Atlantic week after week. Between January 1941 and May 1943, corvettes sank or helped sink 47 confirmed U-boats. Destroyers sank 63, but 4 times as many corvettes were out there. Per ship, the corvette was deadlier. But victory came at terrible human cost. Living spaces were cramped metal boxes, 6 by 8 meters, holding 30 to 40 men in triple-tier bunks with barely half a meter between levels. The air was a mix of sweat, diesel fumes, damp clothes, vomit, and bilge water sloshing onto the deck plates. Ventilation was almost non-existent. In storms, every hatch was sealed, trapping heat and stench. Below decks, men stripped to underwear because of the engine room heat. On deck, they wore every layer they owned, then stood in freezing winds for 4-hour watches. Sleep came in small fragments, rarely more than 3 hours at a time, and watches ran 4 hours on, 4 hours off, around the clock. After weeks, men became half-conscious machines running on routine alone. Frostbite was constant. Wind chills reached -15 to -20 degrees Celsius. Oilskins kept out water but offered no warmth, while beneath stayed soaked. Hands and feet went numb in minutes. 73 Corvette sailors lost toes or fingers to frostbite between 1941 and 1943. And always, at night, there was the fear. U-boats attacked between midnight and 0400, when the escorts were most exhausted. Every Corvette sailor went to sleep knowing a torpedo could hit at any moment, and that if it did, there would be almost no warning at all. This was the price of keeping the Atlantic lifeline open. And the little ships paid it in full. The struggle only intensified for those aboard the small escorts. Merchant sailors might sail in formation and pray any torpedo struck another hull, but Corvette crews had no such illusion. They were the hunters and the hunted. Every faint echo on the set could be a U-boat rising to attack, every ripple at dusk a possible periscope. The relentless alertness eroded men from the inside. After half a dozen crossings, many showed signs of deep fatigue, restless even off watch, stomachs rebelling from stress, hands shaking uncontrollably, eyes fixed and hollow from accumulated dread. Yet they kept going. Some stayed because someone had to defend the lifeline to Britain. Others remained because the Corvette itself became their small, battered community. You didn't abandon the man who shared his only dry socks when yours had frozen, or the one who stood your watch when you were too sick to lift your head. That sense of obligation held the ships together as much as orders ever did. May 1943 finally shifted the balance. In that month alone, Allied escorts destroyed 41 U-boats, at the cost of 58 merchant ships, a ratio the Germans could not endure. From Donit's standpoint, the maths were impossible. 9 months to train a crew, a full year to build a Type 7, but 40 boats lost in a single month while only 15 rolled out of the yards. By late May he pulled his submarines from the main North Atlantic route for the first time, an admission that the central battlefield had turned against him. When U-boats crept back in June, they did so cautiously, avoiding strong escorts and attacking only stragglers. Corvettes helped drive that collapse. Between January and May 1943, they assisted in or directly sank 26 U-boats. Refined ASTIC sets extended detection ranges to nearly 3 kilometers, while the introduction of centimetric radar allowed escorts to find surfaced submarines at night long before they could be seen. The U-boat habit of surfacing after dark to recharge batteries suddenly became lethal. On May 6, 1943, HMS Loosestrife found U-192 by radar alone and closed in under total darkness, firing star shell only when she was in gun range. The German crew never had time to react. Hedgehog attacks transformed the odds even further. Through 1943, corvettes fitted with Hedgehog averaged kill rates above 30% per attack, 4 times the early war depth charge success rate. Maintaining sonar contact all the way into the strike meant the submarine had no blind spot to escape through. Every explosion signaled a hit. When HMS Orcus destroyed U-432 on March 11, 1943 with 6 direct Hedgehog strikes, the submarine collapsed in seconds. The entire engagement, from detection to confirmed kill, lasted barely 14 minutes. The cumulative effect was decisive. Convoy losses plunged. In late 1942, an average crossing might lose 4 ships. By the end of 1943, losses often dropped below 1. Some convoys, like HX-237 in April 1943, crossed without a single U-boat ever reaching firing position. Meanwhile, Allied shipbuilding surged. Britain produced 1.2 million gross tons of merchant shipping in 1943, and Germany lost 244 submarines that same year, nearly triple the previous year's losses. The exchange rate had flipped. The U-boat arm could no longer sink ships as fast as the Allies replaced them, nor survive long enough to threaten the convoys meaningfully. Corvettes stood at the center of that turnaround. Post-war analysis in the defeat of the enemy attack on shipping showed corvettes directly contributed to the destruction of 91 U-boats, around 12% of Germany's total losses, and severely damaged far more. German documents later confirmed that at least 160 additional U-boats were forced to abandon patrols due to Corvette-inflicted damage. More importantly, corvettes deterred attacks outright. Between 1940 and 1943, they shepherded more than 15,000 merchant crossings. Even a pair of corvettes with a convoy cut the likelihood of U-boat attack by nearly half. Captured German officers repeatedly admitted they feared corvettes not for their speed, but for their persistence. Destroyers might sprint after a false contact, but corvettes stayed and hunted until they had an answer. This experience reshaped naval thinking. Before the war, the Royal Navy focused on battleships and fleet engagements. The corvettes proved that wars at sea could be won not by decisive battles but by the unglamorous, relentless work of keeping supply lines alive. Post-war frigates, including the Bay and Lock class, borrowed heavily from Flower-class lessons. Sturdy hulls, simple construction, and anti-submarine weapons as the core of their design. The United States destroyer escort program and Canada's entire escort doctrine likewise grew out of corvette experience. Even the modern term corvette, still used today for coastal and escort vessels, survives because of these wartime ships. Most Flowers were scrapped by the late 1940s, though a few became civilian vessels. The last survivor, HMCS Sackville, now preserved in Halifax, shows just how cramped and punishing their world had been. The tiny mess deck, the perpetually exposed bridge, the depth charge rails still in place. The men who served in them rarely spoke openly about battle. When they remembered the war at reunions, they talked instead about the storms they survived, the shipmates they lost, the watches they endured when exhaustion blurred everything. They served in ships no one wanted, doing work no one celebrated, yet they changed the course of the war.